Welcome everyone to AI for the Average Joe. Hayley and Erica here from Quantum Rise. I hope you're well. Episode 10. Can we believe it? Season 1, episode 10. Hayley is going to show us some interesting stuff with the updates on GPT4 and the amalgamation into DALL-E, or I think it's produced Dolly, even though it's spelled DALL-E. It reminds me of Wall-E, that Pixar.
I know, it is a bit. It is a bit.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Hayley, you've been playing around with the new updates and the kind of creating custom graphics and stuff, right? Which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we know that the simpler things are to use, the better for me. So, as we know, so yeah, I was just having a little play around with it last week, and it was just so helpful. So, with a lot of the learning design that I do, as you'll know, and all of our sort of core principles that we train out when it comes to online training is images and visuals. So generally, I've always gone to the free sites like Pixabay, Pexels, Unsplash. I know we've used some Shutterstock. I use a bit of stock imagery in PowerPoint.
Because we're
And I
aware of
do,
copyright, aren't we? We don't want to just go to Google Images and just pick anything up because A, we could get in trouble, and B, we train that out as a principle, don't we, in our virtual
yeah,
learning?
exactly. And you can find some really good images, but you've sometimes got to compromise on something. It's like, oh,
Mm,
I really like that image, but it's not quite got enough room for some text to sit on it, or whatever it might be. You have to chop and
mm.
paste
And then
them
you're
to make
messing
them
around with
fit.
PowerPoint and trying to replicate colors and shift things
Yeah,
around, and
yeah.
yeah,
Or you spend ages searching for the right image, and then
yeah, go down
the
a rabbit hole.
exactly. So we know what some of the challenges are, and so when I sort of last week I was developing some training for a call center client, and I was thinking, okay, let's go out there and look for some images. And on the general stock image sites, it was very basic pictures of people sat on
Mm,
phones and things like that. But I couldn't get the expression I wanted. So I thought, right, I'm going to have a little play around with ChatGPT, because I know we spoke, and there was now that option to try for images as well as
mhm.
prompting for text. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you what I went through. It was really
Right.
simple. It's going to take me just a couple of minutes, but I'll just set up the OpenAI there. Can you see it there?
I can see it there, and it's probably worth. Oh, just share it again. It's probably worth just saying to people that this is the kind of $20 a month
Yeah.
GPT-4 upgrade, which gives you the access to the stuff that we're going to show you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we obviously decided to upgrade because we're starting to utilize it a lot, but
It's definitely worth it.
it's definitely worth it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the prompts that I put in, which was so basic, and I think sometimes people get caught up in putting the right prompts in for things. But what I wanted was
Is it
somebody.
is it worth like just showing the drop down under GPT-4 now, because we're looking for DALL-E, aren't we?
That's right, yeah. So if you hover over GPT-4 once you're in ChatGPT, you can see the third one down there.
That's
You've
it.
got DALL-E 3. So I've just clicked on that, which will now enable ChatGPT to create images as well as
Mm,
text prompts. So that's really helpful. So I've selected that now, which will mean that when I type in a prompt to create an image, it's going to know where to go and where to take me. Yeah,
mm.
yeah,
So
great
it's
point.
worth knowing that you have to have that part ticked in GPT-4. That was an
Yeah,
update. Where are we now? Kind of coming towards, so it's 23rd of October today. So I
yeah,
think that came in last week as a general update for every GPT-4 user.
yeah. It's great, isn't it?
Mm,
So I was thinking, right, what can I do to create an image of somebody in a call center looking particularly overworked, if you like, or overstimulated whilst they're
mhm.
trying to deal with their customer queries? So I just put in a prompt that was as simple as create an image of someone working in a call center who looks stressed.
Mhm.
Okay. Now it takes a little bit longer than it does for the text responses to generate the image. So you have to be a little bit patient, but obviously it's pulling together now a selection of images on a really, really basic prompt. So once you give it that time to just generate those images, it will come back in a minute with four
Mhm.
possibilities. And this is something that I really liked about it, because it brings up four very different types of approaches for the
Mhm.
image. So we'll wait and see what this brings up as well.
And it's interesting how this is going to compete with Midjourney, which is typically the app that people tend to go to for imagery.
Yeah.
But as we've seen before, it can be a little bit tricky trying to get into Midjourney. And if you're subscribing to GPT, you'd have to pay separately for Midjourney, whereas you don't have to pay separately for DALL-E because it's part of GPT.
Yeah.
So it's all together, isn't it? Which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Now, this is what it's given us, and I look at those and I think they're a good start, but they're not
Mm,
quite hitting the mark. It's not quite what I had in my mind. So this goes back to the point that I know I've had lots of conversations with people saying, yeah, but it's all about the prompts and getting the prompts right, isn't it? And I think it absolutely is. I don't deny that. But equally, let's not hold off because we're waiting for the perfect
mhm,
prompt.
mhm,
Let's put anything in and see what we get, because now we can tweak it.
mhm.
So if I look to that one at the bottom left, for example, I'd say that demonstrates that sort of stressed look, if you like, but I
Yeah,
don't particularly want it to be a cartoon image.
yeah.
So I might put in here now, I like the image bottom left, but please create this in photo quality.
Mhm.
If I put there real life photo quality, and let's see what that does. And again, these are generated for each prompt. So we've never seen these before.
Yeah, this is literally happening in the moment, brand new. This is different. Like you obviously went through this process last week, but it's different words, different ask,
Yep,
etc.
different images,
Different
exactly.
images, yeah, which is interesting in itself, like how different you get, and that's what we're seeing more and more in Gen IA is the development and how quickly it is moving from if you was to ask this months ago versus today, the quality is a lot better today than what it would have been months
Yeah,
ago. And look at that, it's just
yeah,
provided. Wow.
I know. And that's what you've got now. And now I'm thinking, well, that's okay, but now I've lost the anxious, you know? So
Hmm. And you almost want him like slightly facing the camera a little bit more so you can see
yeah,
that anxious view, right? Yeah, maybe let's tweak it again.
please turn him towards the camera to see more of his face. Let's see where we go. And you could go on for ages, but
Mm,
you can just get so much more specific with what you're looking for.
yeah, yeah,
And these are great as well because you can just download them like, straight from there. So you
yeah,
just hover over to download, or you can right click and just copy the image because you might not want to save all these images. So you can copy them and
yeah.
paste them into your stuff as well. I mean, look at that.
Amazing. And do you know what? I love the fact he's not white as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
because I was reading on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago that someone had put a prompt in maybe like 2 months ago in I think it was Midjourney saying, "Can you show me a picture of a board, a company board?" And it gave him a graphic of like 8 white middle-aged men in suits. And then he
Mm,
put the same prompt into Midjourney 2 months later, and it gave him a much more diverse image with
mm-hmm,
females and people of color and things like that. So
mm,
you can already see that kind of, because AI is biased, right? Because
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
it's coming from human data effectively, but
mm.
it's starting to self-correct and learn a little bit, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. The other thing just to watch out for that I found last week as well was sometimes ChatGPT can start putting words to your images. So I think I put in
Oh,
a prompt around create an image that demonstrates resilience, and I think it tried to find its own words that would demonstrate resilience and put them on some signposts and things. That
okay.
they haven't sussed that yet. And even though I put the correct, please use correct spellings and listed them, they still couldn't match the
Yep.
image to the word. So just something to be mindful of when it starts kicking
Yeah.
out words. In the end, I said just remove all the text. So
Yeah.
they haven't quite got the text to the image right. But I think when they do, I mean, then we're talking, aren't we? Because you can start putting your points into the
Hmm.
image, which again, from a learning design perspective, is great because then we're nailing the key points as well. So
Yeah.
it'll obviously come, I would imagine, but they haven't
Yeah.
quite got there yet. Yeah,
Yeah, this is great. I just wonder, can we make him a little bit more anxious? Because he looks a little bit
yeah,
too chilled for me.
yeah. So I would like him. It almost feels wrong writing this. I want him to be anxious. I would like him to look more, less relaxed, maybe,
Okay.
and more anxious. Let's see
Yeah,
what
this
we
is going to
do.
be interesting, isn't
And I
it?
mean, think how quick this is happening. But putting those emotions to the faces I found last week was great. So let's see what it does this
Mm.
time.
Mm-hmm. And again, the fact it's recognizing emotions and what that looks like on the human face, that's quite
Yeah.
interesting in itself, isn't it? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I've noticed that GPT-4 is now, its training data is up to I think 2022. So it was originally September 2021 and they've updated it. Oh my God,
Oh,
look!
look!
He looks really quite stressed out
Maybe
there,
I
doesn't
could
he?
maybe tone it down a little bit. But
Yeah, maybe like tone it down by like 20% or something like that. See if it recognizes a percentage.
yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it will.
That's so funny. He
But
looks like
this
proper
is
like worried there, doesn't he? Tone the anxious down by 20%. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
But this is why I love it, because you don't have to get the prompt right first time. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look now, look at all these images that we've got that are just generated
Yeah. Like the
through prompts
journey it
that we've
goes
put
on
in.
is just
Yeah.
fascinating. You can see how people go down the rabbit hole with it though,
Oh,
can't you?
absolutely, absolutely.
So he looks too chilled. He
I
looks
know
too
they haven't
chilled.
got
It's
it, got
it's
that right.
struggling to get the difference, isn't it? But
Yeah,
yeah, I think we get the point.
get
So
the idea. So you can really
yeah.
play around with that and put in whatever you want, and then you can be really conceptual as well. So I could put in here, um, please create an image that represents, I don't know, say mindset. So
Okay.
you could also put in quite conceptual images, conceptual
Mm.
prompts, and let's see what it comes up with. Because again, when I did this last week, when you've got an idea of what you want to represent, but maybe you don't know
Mm.
what to search, because a lot of sites expect you to kind of search quite literally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's also great for finding those more conceptual responses as well.
Mm. That's always the problem I've had with Shutterstock. You always feel, even like we've paid for a subscription, you still don't quite get what you need, and you do make do, don't you? It's like, oh wow, look at that.
Ah, here we go. Good example of the words. See,
Oh, okay.
so they've tried to put words to it.
What did the words actually say? I can't quite see. They look like random letters, actually.
They are.
Okay.
And then I could say something, and I won't, go into this
Mm,
now, but I could write something like, please change the wording on the signs on the bottom left image to
mm.
say this.
This, and this.
And I
Yeah.
thought that would be amazing if it worked, but
Yeah.
it didn't quite. The words were put onto the image, but not spelt correctly. So
Right. Yeah.
that was a
Interesting.
shame. So, for example, there's an image here, and it'll be difficult to see this for people watching, but it says thought and it's got an extra T on it, for example. So, it's that really, which is a shame. But I think when they get there, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But see,
Yeah.
such a conceptual idea and four different interpretations to work with. So,
Mm,
I think we've talked about like brand design and stuff before, but it just
mm-hmm.
takes out a lot of that initial thought. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Love it. And it's interesting because people will now say, we had a query, I think, from Martin Baker when you posted something similar on LinkedIn last week.
yeah.
Do you reference the fact that image has been created on AI and ChatGPT? I mean, I always reference when I take stuff for blogs, for example, but like from what I understand from a legal perspective, the test cases that have gone through court so far in the last couple of months, the judges have tended to rule that actually you can't copyright or anything that you create. Whether that changes when the new legislation
Mm,
comes in later in the year, the EU AI Act.
yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
moment, it's like, is it best practice to reference the fact that you have
Yeah.
used Gen AI for that? Or it's an
Mm.
interesting space,
We
isn't it?
haven't caught up yet, have we? And I think that,
Mm,
and there will be more tape around it as it
mm,
becomes more widely used for sure. And I know it's getting there already. But yeah, I think
mm.
it depends on your own comfort levels, your own understanding. As you said, when you
Mm.
try and actually look for the answer, it's difficult to find.
And
It'll
would you
come.
put taken from Google or taken from Pixabay on a slide? You probably wouldn't. So
Mm,
you
mm,
like, if we use the same behaviors, and I'm not saying this is right, but if you use the same behaviors, you would quote an author, a written
mm,
text, but would you
mm,
quote, unless there's specific instructions that you have to for commercial reasons, you
mm,
probably wouldn't quote
mm.
the author of the image that you've taken from Pexels or Pixabay or
I
whatever.
know. And the argument is, again, it's a lot, this has all come from human data somewhere. That's where ChatGPT will pull
Hmm.
from, but that's complex. And
Mm.
um, yeah, but we'll see. We'll watch this space.
Yeah, there'll
Something
be
to, I
some
think,
etiquette that will come from
yeah,
somewhere that people adopt.
approach with excitable caution, I think is what I said. And to Martin,
Yeah,
let's get excited about it rather than frightened of it. But then let's be
yeah.
cautious that this is still taking shape and things, I'm sure there'll be legislation put in place, which will
Hmm.
hopefully help us rather than hinder us when it comes to
Hmm.
using it. So,
So, so as I keep saying, no magic bullet as yet, no operations manual on how to use Gen AI as yet. But I was watching Dr. Philippa Hardman's session at World of Learning, the recording of it, on Sunday, actually. Today's Monday. And she says something very similar. Get excited about it, but approach with caution. Don't be afraid to test and learn and see what works and educate people. That's kind of is part of her roadmap. Education was the first activity to undergo. So
mm,
I think I think we're in the right place with that stuff.
definitely, definitely. But it's exciting. It's great
It's
for me.
exciting.
It's
Yeah.
really changed the look of some of the decks that I'm doing for our clients, and that's really
Mm,
exciting. So, yeah, it's really lifted it up a level. Great, great quality images that you can play
mm,
around with.
love that. The other
Okay.
thing I thought we could cover on today's update version of Average Joe was the Zoom AI companion that's just landed about 2 weeks ago. I've started using it. I don't know if people on watching today's session would have, but I wanted just to quickly point out, and it's quite a basic update, but I just wanted to show people what the update for that looks like now. So I'm just going to share the toolbar. Hayley, I think you should be able to see my
Yeah,
toolbar in the
yeah,
middle of the screen right now. Great.
yeah.
There is an option, there's a couple of more options that have landed on the toolbar, which could kerfuffle you and throw you a little bit if you've logged onto your virtual classroom and it's the first time you've seen it. So I'd recommend, if you do use Zoom, do the update and then just get onto Zoom on yourself and have a look and see how it goes. But you've got things like summary and particularly AI companion, which I think is pretty awesome. So if you click on that, you just need to effectively switch it on in the back end of your Zoom account. There's lots of things where people, if the chat's going in terms of what's been shared, updates, for example, and someone comes in late, they can click on Catch Me Up, and that person will get a specific transcript in their own chat that will
Wow.
say, these are the top things that have been spoken about already. Was my name mentioned? Yes. So Erica said this, this, and this, that Hayley's going to work on this piece of work. So
Wow.
Hayley would pick up where her name. So it's listening to what we're saying. But
Mm,
so does Alexa and Siri and everything else, right? But the one thing I thought was brilliant, I had a conversation with a chap called Ben from Lupin, who's also working in the AI space. And what I loved was I didn't realize this was going to happen, but I got a fantastic email of the conversation between me and Ben just off the back of turning on the AI companion on Zoom. And I'm just going to share it with you. There's nothing kind of sensitive on this email, but Ben Williams is a fantastic chap, again, working in the AI space, which is why we had an initial conversation. And I suddenly got this landed my inbox after having a great conversation
that's
with
great.
Ben.
That's amazing.
Look at this, like it's
Yeah.
summarized and put under subheaders, basically the just off the cuff conversation that
Mm,
Ben and I were having, and our thoughts and insights. As you
mm,
can see, we were talking about AI implementation, L&D.
mm.
Ben's an ex-Marine, so he was telling me about how he's got involved in this kind of stuff. And I was
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah.
how clever. And the fact it's subheaded and given kind of topics to each of the paragraphs. So it's not just come
Mm,
as a transcript like you can already do on Teams and Zoom. And I pinged that to Ben and I said, look at this, it's brilliant. And he's like, oh my God, amazing.
yeah.
So
It is.
good.
It's just like think about the time you spend recording meeting minutes and
Mm,
things like that. To be able to have a talk, it's almost worth setting Zoom up in a face-to-face meeting
just for that. Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
capture it, because the time or the people that end up in the meeting just to take the minutes can
Hmm.
now free up that time, those hours that they're spending in that meeting,
Hmm.
by setting up and then cross-checking back on the AI companion or whatever. But
Hmm.
I mean, and that's where this stuff is just going to save
Mm,
people so much time and take away some of the tasks that are eating into our more human skills that we've talked about a lot, and
hmm.
I mean, that's brilliant, isn't it? AI, like, because how often do you and I just jump on a call and before we know it, we've gone down a rabbit hole of conversation, come up with loads of great stuff,
Mhm.
and then you always say to me, "Hayley, write it down, don't lose it." And I'm like, do you know? No, I'm just going
So
to turn on
true.
AI companion
Yeah.
and
And
let
then you,
that
like, you lose
summarize
all
it.
that richness, don't you? And then we're not going to lose that richness now because we're going to have that summary that's automatically created. And you do have to check for accuracies and
Yeah,
quality check. And
of
we know
course.
that with this stuff, it's not again the silver bullet. But what an helpful thing! And when Microsoft Copilot comes in very shortly, that's going to be one of several functions that's going to cross check and talk to each other. And we can ask that to, I could ask, that to be put into a deck, for example. And, so we
Mm,
could spitball and then create
a
material off
presentation.
of the back of that.
You could
So,
do that
yeah.
anyway with AI companion. You know, you
Mm,
could take those summary points, put it into Gamma, create a
yes.
deck.
Yeah. And then boom, you've got it, right? Whereas with Copilot, it's all going to be interlinked
Yeah.
into one thing. You don't even need to go
Mm,
into different apps and different settings or set different accounts up. Again,
mm,
it's going to be another step forward in terms of automation and augmentation, which is why this is just so exciting. And again, it's not about people filling the gaps that AI is going to
mm,
leave behind. It's about people getting excited to say, well, if AI is going to do that for me, I can spend time on this stuff, which is even sexier and more fun.
mm,
So
mm. Yeah, yeah,
exciting, isn't it?
it is.
Right, shall we? I think we've geeked out a little bit this morning on today's
This is
episode.
what
So
happens when it's just the two of us.
I
We need
know,
to
right?
bring
We
some guests back in.
got super excited. We do, absolutely. So let's wrap up. Hopefully that's been helpful. Some more practical tips for you watching today on AI for the Average Joe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.